Save the King!
Hello and welcome to another episode of Pod Save the King. It's been a busy old week in royal land. We've had a bit of a guessing game of to will they, won't they, with the Sussexes coming to the UK. We've had the King meeting with some of the senior royals, possibly to discuss Harry and his family coming over to Britain and what that means for a meeting between the King and his grandchildren. We've seen the Princess of Wales doing the incredible Three Peaks Challenge and visiting Wimbledon. And of course, all the world is getting ready for Taylor Mania. It is Taylor Swift's wedding this week, and there's a bit of royalty flickering along with the wedding as well. So as ever, I'm joined by Jennifer Newton, who has been keeping tabs on Taylor Swift as well as the Three Peaks Challenge. I have been keeping tabs on Prince Harry and pretty much making a fool out of myself for making predictions, because I don't think anyone can make them anymore, can they? Because
no.
First of all, I think I did say I think Harry would bring Meghan and the children, and then it seemed that he won't. So, okay, where do we start, Jen? I mean, let's take it back to, gosh, it seems so long ago now, but it was last weekend. We had confirmation finally from the Sussexes press team that Prince Harry, the Duchess of Sussex, and their children would be coming to the UK. Of course, next Friday, it is the 1 year anniversary countdown for the city of Birmingham hosting the Invictus Games next year, which is obviously very, very exciting for Harry, very exciting for all the competitors, everyone that's going to be covering it. I mean, it's gone from strength to strength each year. So a very exciting period to look forward to. Whether things are going to be quite so simple, not only for Harry in the Invictus Games, because Meghan, we were told, was going to be on stage with him, but just 24 hours later on Saturday, there was a new statement that came out, which was pretty much full of wrath and fury, I think, from Harry and his team about how they were not going to be, so they were now not certain that they were going to come because of a decision from RAVEC, which we know is the Royal and VIP Executive Committee, which has been making all these decisions about Harry and his family and their right to security when in the UK. So if we take our listeners back, who I'm sure are very au fait by now with the situation, but Harry and Meghan were stripped of their taxpayer-funded security when in the UK when they left their royal roles in 2020. Now, of course, Harry has taken that decision to the High Court, taking the British government to a very expensive court case, which he ended up losing. Then he went to the Court of Appeal. That judgment didn't go in his favour. Then he wrote a letter to the Home Secretary, and the Home Secretary said that they would look to do a review. Now, this was all the way back in February, and it should have taken, Harry believed, a matter of weeks. You speak to anyone close to him, they were very certain that not only would it only take just a small amount of time, but it would generally fall in their favour because of a risk assessment that they had compiled at their own expense, and it said that the Sussexes were subject to a number of potential terrorist threats against them. Of course, we've seen that they have been. They have had certain threats against them. I mean, that's been well documented, well publicised. Harry spoke about it in court as well. So I think they all thought that there would be sort of a shifting of the goalposts to allow them to come to the UK. Now, the situation has always been that Harry just had to make, I think it's 28, 30 days notice, whether he was going to come back to Britain, make sure that he'd given the Home Office a full itinerary of his plans, where he was planning to stay, what he was planning to do, and so forth. And then he may qualify for potential security. And I imagine that all centered around whether he was going to be taking any part in royal events. Let's say he came back for Trooping of the Colour just last month, then that may be very, very different. But he hasn't done that, and it seems as though he is just coming to do some sort of private endeavours, I suppose we could call them, charity events. And it hasn't gone in his favour. So, I mean, on the face of it, it looks like he's jumped the gun, doesn't it? Because he's put this statement out on the Friday. They still didn't have the decision. There was a bit of a few questions over whether the Sussexes had been informed by the Home Office that they would be receiving taxpayer-funded security, and that would allow them, or sort of allayed their fears that they could come back to Britain. Of course, Harry has said many times that he doesn't feel that it's safe enough to bring his wife and children to his home country. On the flip side, he had been offered to stay once again, because this has been offered several times now, the opportunity to stay in a royal residence. It was seemed that was deemed appropriate to bring his children, that even if they didn't have the security, which we were all a bit unsure of that decision, if they stayed in somewhere like Buckingham Palace, and of course there's, absolutely armed to the teeth with armed guards and CCTV and what have you, so they would have felt that was fine for the children to exist in the perimeters of Buckingham Palace. But now we've got this situation where, what are we now? We are Friday afternoon. Harry is expected, we believe, on to touch down on Monday. His engagement start on Tuesday. So we are just mere hours away, we could even say, from him arriving. And Buckingham Palace still don't know. We don't know. And I understand Prince Harry doesn't know either. So, I mean, where on earth are we, Jen?
Well, this is the thing. I don't think we know where we are, to be honest. With where if he is, well, I think we can both agree that Harry is going to come regardless. But whether he's going to bring Meghan and the kids is another thing, because he's kind of flip flopped, hasn't it? To put out a official kind of statement, if you like, saying I am going to come, and then 24 hours later, it's like I might not. But then I think it was on Monday, there was another statement from Harry's office saying that he's exploring every avenue possible to bring the children here. So it seems to me like it's going to be a last minute decision, and it depends on what security can be put in place for him and if he's happy with that. And it seems like, for me as well, that the way Harry's kind of making these decisions, rightly or wrongly, is kind of based on his emotions, isn't it? It's very much, I think we know the security situations are quite an emotional topic for him, and I think that's what we're seeing. Kind of an emotional reaction to the news that he's not going to get this taxpayer-funded security on this trip.
You are totally right. I think this is so emotional, and rightly or wrongly, we've seen Harry do this over the last few years. Whether it's his vastly expensive court cases with the British media, you could argue on both points of whether this has been fruitful. He's been called the Dragon Slayer. He feels very, very emotional about his treatment from the British media over his lifetime. Of course, there is the situation where he believes that his mother was very, very unfairly treated. It led to her eventual and very tragic death. And he also feels that he has become a target. I mean, and perhaps it isn't just emotional, because we then saw that certain sections of the press who had been briefed by his team were given a 40-page risk assessment compiled at the request of the Home Office. Now, this appeared in certain publications who are perhaps more friendly with the Sussexes team than others. And I just wanted to take us through a little bit of this, because it seems, the hyperbolic language that was used in this was very, very centered on this is a clear and present danger for Harry and the children that exists. It is that terrorists could create a mass casualty event if Prince Harry is targeted at the Invictus Games. The Duke's private secretary company has warned the government. As I said, it was a 40-page risk assessment compiled at the request of the Home Office. So we take this back a little bit. When Harry sent this letter to the Home Secretary back in February, there was some correspondence between them. They offered the opportunity to put together this threat risk assessment, a TRA. They did so at their own expense. They gave that to the Home Office, and they believed that would lead to a decision in their favour to reinstate this taxpayer-funded security when in the UK. Now, this risk assessment found that Prince Harry, in quotes, faced an elevated risk when in the UK, where 5 of the 6 known homegrown terror plots against him originated. It also says at least 4 individuals responsible for those threats are thought to be out of prison and their whereabouts unknown. It is, we don't know whether the Home Office has been keeping tabs on them. There is a system in the UK which has unfortunately come to light where people with terrorist leanings or have been convicted have sort of gone missing within the system. So I think that sort of plays onto Harry's fears as well. It also says the report says the biggest threat facing the Duke is from lone actors or grassroots terrorists who often target public figures who receive high levels of negative publicity. The narrative is that, in quotes, he is a traitor and poses a threat to the royal family, only serves to incite British nationalist anger, it states. I mean, this is quite incredible that this report has been compiled, but it doesn't seem to have had any effect on the Home Office. And people I was speaking to inside the government this week were saying, it is entirely up to the Duke of Sussex whether he brings his family to the UK. No amount of public statement, or it would seem risk assessment compiled at his own expense, is going to rush a decision or indeed change the Home Office's mind, because they have stated unequivocally on many, many occasions that he is not entitled to it. The Metropolitan Police are not guns for hire. So where on earth does this leave him? And do we think? I mean, it's hard to gauge the sort of public mood on this, because I think it does change. Some people do think that he's the son of the king. He's a former British soldier. He should be entitled to it when he's in the UK. There have been threats against him, and others, of course, think he's made an awful lot of money in his ventures with Meghan after leaving the royal family, and he can damn well pay for it himself. But I mean, what do you think that it will ever change for Harry? And I suppose we've got to put our professional opinions on the line. Do we think that Harry is going to bring Meghan and the children over next week?
I think the thing for Harry is the decision that he makes on whether he brings the children and Meghan next week, I think is kind of going to set a precedence, isn't it? Because he's not going to get the taxpayer funded security. He said that he couldn't possibly bring his children and wife because it's too dangerous. But then if he does, he's kind of, blown a hole in his whole case, in my opinion. But then at the same time, if he's reading this report that his own security team have compiled saying that this is the threat to him, then you would think, well, why on earth would he bring them here if this is what they're going to be subjected to? So I think it's really touch and go. How am I going to hedge my bet? Okay, I'm going to say it's just going to be Harry.
Yeah, I mean, I'm leaning towards that as well. I mean, as I said, I think we do have sympathy for Harry. We do understand that this is a real issue for him. What I don't understand is why on earth you would put out a quasi-royal op-note, these operational notes that Jennifer and I and other royal correspondents and news desks around the country and perhaps around the world do receive when decisions are confirmed. It is very, very rare for op notes to change. They might change because of the weather, or if someone is ill, or they can't get the travel sorted. It's very, very rare that you get a full op note that has been researched and there's been recce's on different locations for members of the royal family to travel to, that they are changed at the last minute. Certainly not changed 24 hours after being put out. There needs to be a very, very valid reason. So I cannot understand why that was put out in its entirety. I mean, Jennifer and I've looked through it. It is so detailed. It goes through all the different timings and places of Harry's engagements, the fact that Meghan was going to be there on Friday in Birmingham on stage with him, the fact that he's going to be making several speeches, the charities he's going to be involved in. All of these places will have had recce's done. So his team will have gone to those. They would have checked the security, the ins and the outs, or literally the ins and the outs of the exits.
How they're going to get in and how they're going to leave. Yeah, exactly.
Hopefully. And what are the dangers? A threat report would have been done, all of this. So to put that out on the Friday, everyone then, without knowing the full facts, and indeed, Harry and Meghan didn't know the full facts, or their team, presumed that he had either taken the decision himself and that they were going to be staying in a royal residence, as the team put out on the Friday, saying we are going to be staying in a mixture of royal residence and private accommodation. Incidentally, that private accommodation, it appears, is Althorpe, where the Earl Spencer resides, where Princess Diana is buried. Of course, Harry's uncle had invited the family to stay. And by staying in a royal residence, we all presumed that that means that Harry and Meghan and the children are going to be meeting the king at some stage. And again, people that Jennifer, I've spoken to from the palace side of things suggested, yes, that would occur when the king was around and that meeting could happen, and that the king was very, very keen for that to occur as well. However, come back to this point, 24 hours later, they receive a letter from the Home Office saying that this wasn't going to be granted. So it puts the cat amongst the pigeons. It sets them into a tailspin. And then, the briefings start heavily once again that this is, absolutely outrageous that he hasn't got it. But nothing has changed. Absolutely no. It's not like they said that he was going to get it. Now, as I understand, the position is that the Sussexes had a bit of a nudge, nudge, wink, wink situation where they presumed by giving this threat risk assessment and engaging with the Home Office that they were going to get a decision in their favour. However, if you haven't got that in your hand in writing, it seems to me incredibly foolish to go ahead and announce your plans where you could be subject to potential other threats if people are knowing where you're going, if your security situation isn't sorted, let alone technically, if it isn't sorted in your own mind. I mean, yeah, maybe it looks like they're just not going to come now, because how can he back down? How can he? It totally puts holes, as you said, put holes in his argument and leaves him open to the Home Office never granting it to him, and then him never being able to bring his children.
Yeah, because if he were to bring them next week and he didn't have this security and everything, goes off without a hitch and it's a perfect visit and he gets to do all of his engagements and the children he's able to take the children where he wants to take them, to visit his uncle, visit his father, then why should he get it at other times? Although I will say, threats can change, there can be different threats at different times. And I guess from the Home Office's point of view, what they'll say is, like, if there was a threat, there's no question he would get the security. But I guess from the information and the intelligence they have, they think that that's not necessarily at this point in time.
Yeah, I mean, we believe they are in Europe. It's been suggested that they are staying with Princess Eugenie at her place in Portugal. Why Portugal would be any safer than the UK or any safer than Colombia or Nigeria, granted that they didn't bring the children, but Meghan hasn't stepped foot in the UK apart from to change flights at Heathrow Airport. So I suppose, we are waiting to see what happens. The Sussexes team still say that he hasn't made a decision. It seems that Buckingham Palace still don't have any reply to this invitation. I mean, could you imagine keeping your mother or your father waiting if you were coming for Sunday lunch literally a day before?
Or if you come to visit, they've got to change the bed sheets and get in a food shop and get in your favourite biscuits.
Yeah, well, exactly. Yeah, that doesn't happen at my mum's house. It's a lean cupboard, so you have to bring your own treat. But again, I just don't understand it on that point. So let's see what happens. I imagine we will be bringing you, the full background as to what had happened, what decisions were made when we tune in. I presume we're going to record next Thursday. We couldn't come to you last week, incidentally, because producer Dan was having a well-earned break, and of course we've still been following this Harry situation, so it has been moving very, very quickly this week. And as we are talking about it, I suppose a perfect segue into this is this meeting between the King, the Queen, and Prince William, which happened in Scotland during the week. On Tuesday, of course, the King and the Queen are up in Scotland for Scotland Week. It is an annual event where senior members of the royal family gather north of the border to celebrate communities and everything fantastic in Scotland. They've been visiting charities, they've been getting out, they've been taking part in traditional games. It has been an absolutely sort of jam-packed order of events. We saw them all dressed up for the Order of the Thistle as well. So, all this sort of traditional elements of Scotland Week taking place. But what normally doesn't happen is sort of a big family dinner. Now, this was broken by one of the other news organisations on Tuesday, I believe, or no, sorry, Wednesday, where first of all they said it was the King, the Queen, um, Prince William, and the Duke and Duchess of Edinburgh. Nothing out of the order. Oh, and the Princess Royal. Nothing out of the ordinary, you would presume, because they're all up there. Why wouldn't they have dinner with the King? But it has since emerged several hours afterwards that it was just Charles, Camilla, and William. So what I was very interested in is, yeah, of course, to be a fly on the wall of this meeting. What was discussed? I mean, we can obviously presume, or I suppose suggest, that the Harry situation will have come up. You know, they're all there together. But I had this conversation between the sort of the editors when Jennifer and I were writing this story of when does a summit become a summit, or is it just a dinner? I mean, of course, Buckingham Palace will say that this was just an ordinary dinner. It wasn't a summit. But I looked up the actual meaning of summit, and I just want
Oh.
to touch upon this because, you know, and I didn't know the literal meaning when we were being asked about it. But a summit meeting or summit is a high-level conference or gathering of top-level leaders. It typically involves heads of state, tick, chief executive officers, potentially tick, if we could say that. That may involve William, or leading experts who convene to discuss strategic priorities, negotiate major agreements, or resolve complex challenges. Well, of course, we don't know what was discussed at the private dinner, but can we call it a summit?
Well, from that definition, maybe. I mean, yeah, head of state, like you say, tick. Leading experts in a field, tick. I mean, whether we knew
I mean,
what they
resolve
talked about.
complex challenges. I mean,
Well,
that
yeah,
is, you know,
exactly. And they have
in a
many.
negotiation.
It's not just Harry, is it? There are many challenges. I suppose, the thing is, we all know that the royal diaries aren't just, done up at the end of the week. They're done in advance, and it probably would have been months in the planning to know that William would have happened to be in Scotland at the same time as the King. But that's not to say that they would have necessarily met, because to be fair, that day William was in Aberdeen, which is quite far north of Edinburgh, so he would have had to travel down to Edinburgh, although he wasn't due to be in Edinburgh the next day. So it's not a given that they would have met, but they decided to. So
And the others weren't around.
No.
Is it presumed that the Princess Royal, after she sort of she was the only one to welcome Harry when the late Queen died, and he arrived late to Balmoral. She was the
Well, yeah.
one who took him to the late Queen's bedside. We know all of this background because it was in Harry's book. They all went to have dinner. He wasn't there for the dinner. They'd all left him. I mean, is she sympathetic to his cause? Is the Duke and Duchess of Edinburgh, are they more sympathetic? They seem to be a bit more outside the nuts and bolts of the institution, the day-to-day strategizing. We do know the Prince and Princess of Wales are very, very invested in that. And if this was a discussion of Charles perhaps saying, I'm going to meet your brother when he gets here and I'm going to see Meghan and the children, but of course this is all up in the air as it was by that point. And let's presume, because we have all known, it's been in the press for quite a few months, that Harry was planning on coming here potentially with Meghan or next week, because of course the Invictus Games has been in the diary for an awful long time. So I think it's very, very interesting. This dinner just days before the trip, it came as they then were all together on the Wednesday. We saw them for the Order of the Thistle service in Edinburgh on the Wednesday. And I can only imagine what was discussed. But one thing's for certain. I mean, we can totally say with confidence, we know William will not be meeting his brother. And Charles is very, very keen to see Harry and the grandchildren. Of course, I imagine Meghan will be there as well. It would be quite a thing if she wasn't going to see the King as well. But listen, let's wait and see what happens with this. I kind of want to move on because there has been so much else happening, and we will be covering this next week as well. Now, talking of the Prince of Wales, we did see him sort of out and about in London, and then he jetted up to Aberdeen, as Jennifer said. He was covering another anniversary, actually, the 3-year anniversary of his Homewards project. Of course, this is the ambitious homelessness program he has set up to try and make homelessness rare, brief, and unrepeated. And it does seem to have gone from strength to strength. There are sort of tangible things that are happening. We reported this week that he has raised £7.7 million as a result of grants and other sort of financial backing from IKEA and other businesses. This is on top of £50 million in grants given by Lloyds Bank throughout the whole 5 years of the project. So, I mean, this seems, we talk about the pillars of their work all the time, don't we? It's very much embedded with what he is trying to do, and so all the Harry stuff and all the business with the Sussexes seems to be a distraction on this. But especially we could touch upon what we discussed with the sovereign grant and like the housing, because
yeah, definitely.
The king definitely has a lot of houses to put up his son, whether that's Buckingham Palace or Windsor Castle or St James's Palace. William has several houses at his disposal. What have we got? Anmer Hall. We have Forest Lodge, where they now live. Kensington Palace, of course, as well. The criticism labelled at William, I think perhaps unfairly, is the royal family could just give up some of their own land or houses. And we know, because we touched upon it when we discussed the sovereign grant, that 20% of the Duchy of Cornwall land is going to be sold off back to the tenant farmers, which will provide them with a totally sort of new lease of life and renewed income that isn't given to the duchy. But surely, William stands alone, I suppose, or when you're doing these sorts of projects, to be that person at the top, to take the flak when it comes, but also to be the convening power. Do you think that William can make a success of Homewards? We're 3 years in now. Do we understand enough of it, do you think?
Well, I think it's quite a simple goal, isn't it? They want to make homelessness, like you say, what was it, rare and not repeated.
Brief.
And so I think,
yeah.
Rare, brief, and not repeated. Yeah, exactly. So I think that, that's a simple idea for people to understand what it is. And I think, the royal residences and the amount that they have access to isn't a great look when you're one of the main pillars of your work is about people who don't have a place to call their own home. But then just because somebody maybe does have more than one house and seemingly a lot of money doesn't mean that they can't help. And to be fair, I think a lot of people who have got involved, because there's quite a lot of celebrities who have lent their name to this project as well, would they necessarily have done so if it wasn't somebody like Prince William, who is the spearhead for this campaign? I'm not so sure.
Yeah, totally. We see TV presenter Gail Porter, who is incredibly popular, I suppose, through the 90s and the early noughties. She then had sort of homelessness situation herself. She spoke about that homelessness projects in the past, where she's now becoming an ambassador. Stephen Bartlett, everybody knows him around the world. The Diary of a CEO podcast, a multi-entrepreneur, fabulously wealthy. Gordon Brown is also an ambassador. He is the former prime minister. I mean, some of his actual policies will have potentially affected people who directly need the support of Homewards now. But it does seem to be moving in the right direction. I mean, there was a briefing last week where several of the Homewards advocates and the business leaders from IKEA and so forth were speaking about, this is just the beginning. It's a 5-year project. The Prince of Wales is the one who can get people in the room. I mean, 50 million from Lloyds is a fantastic achievement. Raising all this extra money. That is exactly what the royal family should be doing. I mean, there was a bit of controversy last week when it was announced that Charles and Camilla would not be living at all in Buckingham Palace. There was a big hoo-ha that the fact that they're going to stay at Clarence House. I mean, I don't feel too strongly about this, to be honest, because they're in their late 70s. They have lived in Clarence House for decades. Buckingham Palace is a working palace. It is Royal HQ. It's still undergoing this huge refit. There was a few people in our office, wasn't there, when we were talking about this story, who were very, very, making their voice heard. That why on earth are we spending £400 million on this building when we could be using that for the greater good? And of course, cost of living crisis, budget cuts within the government, that both things can be true, but this money is going to be given back to the Royal Collection Trust when more and more people can come in. Tens of thousands of people visit the palace and so on. So, my view is that it is a monument for the country, and we still need to protect these monuments. We can't let them fall in to disarray and dilapidation, which essentially that building has been. But it's a tricky situation. But I don't think William has sort of tried to sidestep this in any way. He's saying, the reason why I'm here is because there is a problem. I view it as a problem, and I'm trying to do the best I can. All these things can be true at once without, pop shots being put on. But again, I suppose a good sort of an advantage of being a member of the royal family is if you have an idea, people are going to speak to you, and people are going to talk, and people are going to listen. And we saw that again this week with the Princess of Wales, who had completed the 3 Peaks Challenge at the weekend. And I haven't written them down, but let's see, can we remember them? There's Ben Nevis.
Yeah, that's in Scotland.
Yeah, and so the 3 Peaks Challenge is you climb the 3 highest peaks of the UK.
Yeah, England, Scotland, and Wales. Yeah,
Wales in 24 hours. And the Princess of Wales, you get driven between England, Scotland, and Wales. So you do Scotland first, Ben Nevis.
Yeah.
Then you do Snowfell Pike.
Scarfell Pike.
Scarfell Pike is in the Lake District, and then you drive over to North Wales and you finish in Snowdon. So the Princess of Wales completed the 3 Peaks Challenge in aid of the Royal Marsden Hospital, where she was treated for cancer. She described it as a chance to explore life beyond diagnosis and to give something back. Then, on the announcement on the Sunday when she had finished, and she was met there by Prince William and her children and her parents, Michael and Carol, and her brother James Middleton, which a lovely family affair, lovely pictures that sort of came out of her completing or taking part in the challenge. But also, I thought was very interesting, her describing why she'd done it. Not only to feel better, but she also described that she wanted to support holistic healthcare for people with cancer. So, what did she say about that particular point?
Yeah, so she was talking about how these holistic therapies, as well as the conventional scientific treatments for cancer, can boost well-being and resilience and quality of life, both while you're undergoing treatment or your life after cancer as well. And I think that's something Kate's talked about quite a lot actually recently, her love of nature and how that's allowed her to feel rejuvenated at times when her cancer journey was quite tough. And I suppose this 3 Peaks Challenge is kind of the perfect way to be outside in nature and push yourself to do something that you wouldn't, is pretty difficult, because it is, 24 hours going up 3 peaks. I mean, I don't know how she did it, but she did. And raise money for the Royal Marsden, which obviously is somewhere that she considers very important, having gone there for her cancer treatment. And now she's patron of the charity along with Prince William. So yeah, I think it all came together pretty well. I think this challenge for Kate, and I think people are pretty impressed.
Yeah, no doubt. It's great that she's feeling well and fit and energized to do this. It has been a very gradual process for her. She's spoken very eloquently and openly, I think, over the last few months about her healing journey. That doesn't necessarily just mean your physical health, but also your mental health as well, of being dealt a diagnosis. Was come back to the fact of, 42-year-old mother of 3. That is a very particularly devastating conversation, I suppose, when you're told that you have got cancer and you're having to have chemotherapy, and what that means for your family, and then especially the elevated mental aspect of that, of being a future queen and your husband being a future king as well. So if you can support it, go and support the Royal Marsden Fund that has been jointly launched with the Princess of Wales. It is going to be producing holistic healthcare at the hospital, a totally new lease of life for the hospital. And Dame Kelly Palmer, who we've spoken to many times, the chief executive of the hospital, said that she was absolutely delighted and very, very proud of the Princess of Wales being able to complete this challenge. So a lot more of Catherine getting back to full health, hopefully in the future. She looked absolutely radiant this week at Wimbledon. She was in the grounds of the All England Club this week. She appeared, first of all, meeting people in the queue. The queue is where people camp overnight. They camp from sort of 2, 3, 4, 5 in the morning. Then you get in the queue. Then you have to go and pick up a number to then potentially get into centre court. I think they give a couple of hundred tickets out to get into the 20,000 seater stadium, and what a day it is. I mean, it's a great sort of atmosphere at the queue. I've been down there before when many years ago, interviewing people who are camping overnight. She then got into the box office to surprise the people who had camped out overnight. And we are enjoying, we haven't had a weather update for a while. We are enjoying another heat wave here in the UK. Wimbledon has been basking in the glorious sunshine. And then she went to one of the outside courts and saw a couple of the games. No doubt the Princess of Wales will be making another appearance at Wimbledon later on in the championships. Normally goes and sees the women's and the men's final. So more to look forward to on that. Now, just before we go, I mentioned at the top of the show, Taylor Mania. Well, when they do Brangelina, have they got one?
I haven't heard one.
Travis and Tay. Oh, it's Tay. Is it Tay? No. Trey Kel.
I've not heard one, I'll be honest. If you want to make one up.
Travis Kelce and Tay Trey. Maybe it's Tay Trey. Anyway, if you're a Taylor fan, you can tell me and Jennifer what a mess up we've made of that. However, it is Taylor Swift is getting married to her NFL star boyfriend Travis Kelce today. It's Friday, isn't it? We've seen a lot of coverage over the last few days, no doubt. America will be stopping in its tracks for the big wedding of the year, and
America's
the World
royal
Cup
wedding.
It is. You're totally right, and it's interesting you mentioned that because they have had a bit of royal stardust. Prince William has made a surprise appearance on Travis's podcast, as I think he does with his brother.
Yeah.
And the episode is being released on the day they are expected to marry. And let's take a listen because you need to be sitting down for this because it's pretty punchy.
Our guest today is the 6'3" prince from London, England. That's right, the president of the English Football Association, the vice royal patron of the Welsh Rugby Union, the Duke of Cambridge, the Duke of Cornwall, the Lord of the Isles, Prince of Great Stewart of Scotland, Earl of Chester, and the Prince of Wales. Ladies and presenters, please welcome His Royal Highness Prince William!
That is quite an intro, guys. Amazing.
We had to do it big for you. Had to do it big.
Well, that gave you a glimpse of the episode. Jason, very excitedly, Jason the brother, very excitedly introducing William, who joined the podcast via video link. That's pretty. What an intro, as William said. I mean, it's very, very cool that he's taken part. I mean, this is the perfect marriage, isn't it? I mean, William has spoken. We've seen their love of Taylor Swift before when he took George and Charlotte to the Taylor Swift gig in London at Wembley Stadium, and he also seemed to be hankering for a wedding invite when he was on that Heart FM interview. Do you reckon they got an invite?
I mean, to be fair, apparently 1,000 people are going to this wedding, so you've got to say they were invited. Yeah, 1,000. Yeah, that's what we've heard. 1,000.
Oh my word! They need to hold it in one of those incredible stadiums that we've seen from the World Cup, the big jumbotron.
Well, it's apparently at Madison Square Garden, isn't it?
What?
The wedding?
Oh my God!
You're not a Swiftie. You don't know. You're not being keeping.
My daughter's. She knows she's probably a little bit young to be getting into concerts. We're very much K-pop demon hunters at the moment.
Yeah.
We don't let her watch the show because it's like catnip. It's like one of those mad flashing cartoons. But she's very into the music, and we have been sort of shaking to Taylor Swift in the
like
car.
Prince William.
But yeah. What's that thing with James Corden? He does that car karaoke. That's it.
Couple karaoke. Yeah. So anyway, I think
that's
they probably were invited, but whether they would attend a wedding like that, I'm not so sure.
I mean, it's a bit much, isn't it?
Yeah,
a bit much.
yeah.
But listen, that's enough of my Taylor Swift driving antics, and we will have plenty to catch up on next week because, of course, with the Harry and potentially Meghan and the children show will be coming into town. Look out for all the updates. We are going to be giving you live updates as they happen on Mirror Online. We will be all over social media. No doubt Jennifer and I will be doing some explainers and some live blogs, and catch us at Jennifer Newton1 and at Russell J. Myers on Instagram. And until next time.
Pod save the king!